Hey, welcome to this episode of Boulder Builders. Today, I'm so glad to have my friend Morgan Lloyd coming to my show. How are you doing, Morgan?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Justin.
Yeah. So Morgan, you've been working for Trailstone Insurance, an independent agency. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm an independent insurance agent.
Would you like to share a little bit about your experience with Trailstone and how you get into independent insurance industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it was my wife's idea to get into insurance.
Uh-huh.
She's a mortgage lender, and she had a lot of prospects that she felt like I could help them. So I had kind of that initial potential lead source to be able to get clients early on, which was super helpful in getting experience. I looked around. I applied to different places and I wanted to get some experience before starting my own agency. At the time, I really hadn't even thought about starting my own agency, but then I was lucky to find Trailstone Insurance. They have a lot of good products. The main kind of constraint with insurance is as an independent agent, is to have carriers that you can deal people with. Not all carriers work with every independent agent. So I was lucky to find Trailstone, and they have really good processes, and I've been able to kind of learn from them and kind of grow with them throughout the past few years I've been working with them.
Very cool. So what made you decide to, choose the independent agency route instead of, let's say, like a State Farm or a farmer, Farmers? Those are just one company, one carrier.
Yeah, absolutely. The main factor is pricing, I think. It's much easier to win if you not only have you can kind of fit every niche, whether it's, high fire risk homes in the mountains, we have options, whether it's, high risk auto, or just a standard, suburban household, $500,000, $600,000 house. We have really good options for basically everybody. So it allows it's a great market opportunity, especially when you have this many carriers. That's really a huge advantage. I think being with State Farm's it's such a big company that they would have a lot of options, but they wouldn't be able to take high risk auto, for example, which, that's not a huge part of my business, but it's definitely nice to have options for basically everybody.
Sure. So how have you, your experience with Trailstone or, your work as an independent agent, being evolved and progressed?
Yeah. Initially it was a struggle. I mean, you're starting from nothing and there wasn't really,
that's kind of like entrepreneurship.
You have no clients, you have no experience, why would anybody work with you? But I just started learning as much. Really, that was the initial phase, was just learning as much as I could. So probably for the first year, I was just really obsessed with learning everything I could about insurance, everything I could about marketing as well. I really kind of went deep on how to generate leads through social media, kind of out of necessity because I couldn't build a book of business any other way. Buying leads, which was kind of the standard at the agency at the time. You buy a lot of times shared leads. And that's not I didn't like it. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't like the idea of like harassing people that didn't want to talk to you, if they'd even answer, wasting so much time trying to get a hold of people that, so it worked much better for me to just start posting a lot of stuff about insurance on social media, building out my network. And then slowly that started getting traction. It took a while. Probably the first 3 months were relatively few leads. It was about the third or fourth month where it started taking off. And I started having what would be pretty good results from that.
You mean like just from the first, like the fourth month, the 3 or 4th month, you got traction already?
Once I switched, yeah. So the first 6 months or so, I was trying to do kind of what everybody traditionally at the agency had done, which was to buy leads and just use automation to grind people down and find prospects and eventually make sales that way. The results of that on average were probably, $20,000 to $30,000 in premium sold per month back then, which was, that was probably pretty good. Because insurance is pretty sticky. Once you sell that client, they tend to stick around for 4 or 5 years. So that can kind of accumulate over time if you consistently do that. It was probably the 3rd or 4th month before I got over 40. And then it's just grown ever since. So
that's pretty cool. That's, pretty efficient.
Yeah. It's much more efficient in terms of time, like finding people that way versus trying to, and I think it's going to go away. I think buying paid internet leads and harassing people on the phone, just nobody wants to deal with that.
Did you find other effective marketing tactics or strategies?
I was thinking about everything initially. I had signs that I never put out, but I was I had all kinds of ideas. I was thinking, I set up partnership with a driving school, look for, parents with new drivers. I mean, that's the ideal market. It's one of the ideal markets, because they're paying $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year for auto insurance in Colorado. So that's a good market to be in, and we have competitive rates in that niche. But ultimately, just the best thing was it was so much more time efficient than doing anything else. Was just looking for building out a really good network of kind of building my reach and visibility on social media, and then so having a lot of connections, and then looking for conversations related to insurance, and then adding value into those conversations with clear, say, like linkability back to my contact information so people could easily reach out. And that work persisted and kind of accumulated so that over time it was very easy. It became, don't even have to do any work at all to generate those leads, because then you get referrals, that just, and it still lives I get leads from 2 or 3 years ago of that kind of effort, So yeah, it's a great, in terms of in my business, it's a great way to generate business, generate leads.
Yeah, cool. What other metrics or traits you believe to make a successful insurance agent?
I think number one is honesty. Brutal honesty. A lot of times, like it's, if you can make sales in dishonest ways, but it will destroy your business in the short term and in the long term, I feel like, because you're going to have issues with underwriting up front, which is going to be a bad experience for your client, and then in the long run, if you have a big claim, and it's not, your policy wasn't written correctly, that's the one thing that could kill your business. So
what else?
Yeah. And then also just,
I know you work very hard.
Yeah. Being available. Yeah. That's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want people calling you Saturday, Sunday,
right.
Evenings, holidays, and people do. And sometimes on the sales side, you tend to have to do that a little bit. People sometimes need you to contact them at, 6:00 in the evening on a day or something, occasionally on a Saturday morning, but you don't want to be changing people's auto policy at, 8:00 on a Saturday. It's, especially when you have hundreds of clients, it just gets to the point where it's kind of ridiculous.
I heard it in some industry, I'm not sure what's the realtors industry. There's one saying if you just calling people back, you're kind of like beating 80% of the agents already. Is that a similar thing? Scenario in the insurance industry?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially right now. Yeah. There's so much demand for quotes, especially if you have the options. That I think it's easier right now in Colorado, but other markets, like Arizona and Utah aren't seeing that. So, I think try to be exceptional on the service side. I'm fine with like losing people if they found a better deal with State Farm or somewhere else. If they want to leave, that's understandable. And I'll tell people you got a better deal with what you have currently or switching over. That makes sense. But I don't want to lose people because I did a poor job on service. So that's kind of the foundation of everything.
Yeah. Since COVID, a lot of things have been changed, economics, culture, even, that definitely affect insurance as well, right?
Oh yeah.
Some states in insurance premiums like doubled even.
Yeah.
So how does that affect the market here in Colorado?
Yeah. I mean, price increases here in Colorado have been, I believe we were 4th in the country in 2023. I think Arkansas was the worst, but yeah, we are seeing carriers leave the market. We're seeing people can't afford insurance on their homes, and in a lot of circumstances, people are kind of being almost driven out of their homes, being convinced that they need to leave the state because of insurance and taxes. So, yeah, we're definitely seeing a big struggle there.
So, most people believe in September, which is next month, the Fed is likely to drop the rate a little bit. What do you think? In your industry have the same expectation, or you?
I think that we've seen the peak of, so last year in 2023, we had what I would consider to be a panic in the insurance industry. So the reinsurance markets, which kind of back up the insurance companies that you deal with on a daily basis that you'd hear about, they have to buy insurance to kind of mitigate their risk on the back end. So those markets blew up and their capacity was restricted. So that caused a lot of carriers to actually not really be able to write business or to be just financially concerned about financial insolvency. So that led to that, but really the panic of 2023, which was carriers leaving the market in high risk areas like Colorado, in particular on the coast. And so actually I'm seeing insurance kind of stabilizing a little bit this year as those markets improve. Carriers have all kind of bought insurance, but renegotiated their reinsurance contracts. Things are looking a little bit better compared to what it was last year. Still increases of 20%, 25%. I think consumers are still seeing it, but I'm not seeing so much like just the rampant cancellations for seemingly no reason. That was really the norm last year. How about your business? I know you're looking at all kinds of opportunities in oil and gas.
Yeah. I have oil and gas investments that was closed this January. Cash flow and expectations, 30% plus annual returns. So basically 10 folds for 10 years, whole time.
Are you seeing the oil and gas continue? What do you think about the price of oil and gas in this kind of context with inflation?
We mainly look at, long term. Oil and gas is an international commodity, right? It's a like largest. So it kind of fluctuate, right? Some people thought, the price is not stable, right? But if you look at long term, we mainly look at long term, like 10 year, 20 years investment scope, and to see if that's something we want to invest. So we don't really look at the pricing change every day. After analysis, we believe that's a asset, a great asset to invest in for a long term, like say 10 years. And then we make investment and find the best team to work with, and make huge returns for investors.
Yeah. And what are you looking for now? What do you see in terms of opportunities that you have coming up?
So also we are going to have another oil and gas investment fund coming up this year, October maybe. So it'll be a very similar project, $50 million, working with another French fund, raise capital together, and work with the same team basically, and should projected to have the similar returns. So that's the one thing. Oil and gas, we're heavily in energy investment. Another asset is private credit fund. We're going to raise capital and then lend it out to some real estate projects. It's kind of our niche is $1 to $5 million loan amount. So there's a lot of lending that's towards amount that's under 1 million or over 5 million or 10 million. So 1 to 5 million is what we are focused on, because the interest rate kind of created a really need for private credit. Okay. So we see that, and a lot of huge capital they're going heavily into private credit as well. So that's something we're going to work on this year as well.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like a good opportunity. Yeah. What kind of returns do you expect there?
So for that one's like 11% to 14%. It's pretty stable. It's definitely not as high as oil and gas. It's 11% to 14% is not bad either. And also investors should be able to get distribution the second quarter after they invest, and they get distributions every month. So it's pretty stable. It really depends on each individual's investment preference. And
what's the risk profile look like between those two different investments? With oil and gas, I assume it's a bit more speculative.
Yeah, risk. People really, risk is kind of relative, right? So some people, I didn't know so much about oil and gas. And when I first heard about it, it's to me, the first impression was it's a huge risk. It's a super risky investment. You heard a lot of stories that people invest in oil and gas, they made tons of money. They also lost all the money, right? There's laws. So, but also our investment is not, raise capital and, spend the money and find, exploring, right? It's called wildcat, and find those wells. We're actually acquiring those already producing wells, and also with there's like 70 proved but not developed wells. So that's not even part of the valuation. So we find super good deals. Our $50 million acquisition, right after we done that, the market value is about $150 million. So we had so much equity already, and then we're going to increase operations and replace some equipment. So we, increase 30% daily production. That's pure cash. We just need to drill and spend money to drill. So, and then we're going to sell in the right time with, 8 to 12 years, likely in the 10th year, in the right time. So that's how we could get investors 10 times of investment back for 10 years. Yeah. So, if you don't know so much about the industry, that could be a very risky thing to think about, right? To invest in. But once you have more understanding of it, it's not so risky. Yeah.
Is it are your profits potentially, and your investors' profits potentially exposed to the price of oil and gas? I mean, must be substantially.
Right. Yeah. The valuation of the product when you sell it, right? And also that's your, kind of like a daily product. So it definitely, linked to the oil and gas price. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a speculative opinion on the price of oil and gas over the next 5-10 years? Do you think it's going up or stable?
5 or 10 years, a lot of people believe that oil and gas is kind of like an industry that's going to go away very soon, right? It's because it's going to be replaced by green energy. But by I believe the U.S. Department of Energy, so for the next 30, 50 years, the electricity, generated from oil and gas will still maybe drop like 5 to 10% from the whole, electricity we have in the United States and most of the places in the world. So it's going to still be like a long-term energy for this country, at least. And this country is heavily rely on that. We're not against any green energy, or it's just the technology there is not there yet. It needs, technique, kind of like a breakthrough, right? So it's to make it much more efficient that could replace more of the fossil fuels, but it's not there yet. So we still see a huge demand for fossil fuels like oil and gas. So this is like a long-term projection for us. We still have, supply demand. We still believe it's a huge demand for that. Yeah.
Still got massive growth in India, Africa.
Yeah.
I know you originally came from China. Have you been to China recently in the past couple of years?
This year. Yeah. Early this year.
Okay. Were you blown away by the electric cars?
China is producing huge amount of, I think, excessive amount of electric cars. I think that's a lot to do with government incentives.
Subsidies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was blown away. I was just back there that's about 2 months ago. And it's just amazing to see the quantity of domestic built electric cars in China and the quality. I mean, compared to,
right.
I think the locally produced cars, at least from, appearances, seem to be better quality, or at least nicer, more luxurious, more beautiful than, the cars that we have here in the States, or like the internationally produced cars like Kia and Toyota, and certainly the American cars.
I do believe there's a kind of like an overinvestment in that field. At least that's my opinion in the Chinese market. I believe there's a lot of, by data, there's too much capital in the industry, a lot to do with, kind of like government incentives, right? Yeah. And also I think a lot of companies, they're kind of like switching to electric cars, even from, cell phone, from some energy companies, from real estate companies, becoming electric car company in China.
Yeah.
One night.
A bubble.
So, yeah. So definitely, kind of like, to me, it's more like repeating like electric bike industry in China. Like there's so many, there's like tons of bikes that's kind of like trash there after overproducing. So it's just my opinion that it's overinvested in that field. I see, I could project a lot of companies going to fail in next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was looking when I was there, that was probably the most interesting thing I saw on this trip in terms of just that and the trains. I mean, they built the high-speed rail network it's incredible. But even with everything being based off electric, they still need gas.
That's
they have
right.
Power plants.
The 70% electricity your electric car are using are from basically generated from oil and gas.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, still the same resource.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably for them, that makes sense because they're so constrained on oil supply. They have such a lack of crude, I think. But they produce like maybe 4 million barrels a day, something like that. I could be wrong, but
Where?
In China, domestically.
Not sure. China is not. I don't remember I cannot recall the exact number, but China is not a oil-rich country.
Yeah.
The cost to get oil out of the Chinese soil and is much more expensive than if you just invest into wells in say Middle East and then ship it to China.
Yeah.
Arrive in China is much cheaper than it is in China.
They have the security concerns related to Straits of Malacca and India and South China Sea and all that. So
right,
but security makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But security is also kind of relative, right? You could if you have a good relationship with everybody, your supply, oil and gas supply from other countries shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Because it's such a global, global market, a global family. It's global supply chain.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm not concerned, right?
Yeah. In the U.S., I mean, we have a surplus, right, at this point of oil and gas.
Yeah, U.S. I believe U.S. is for 2023 at least is number one the oil and gas producing country. Yeah. I think the top 3, oil and gas reserves. This country has a lot of resources, natural resources, and talents.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to waste it. I agree with what you're saying. I think that we've got to utilize what we have, especially if it's the nice thing about in the U.S. I come from southeastern Ohio originally, and we have the Utica Shale field out there, and it's been fracked, and we have a farm out there. So that's how my mom retired. The nice thing about in the U.S. is that people's rights are respected in terms of their property rights, so that you actually get paid out for what your mineral resources versus potentially having just seized in some places around the world, Latin America, or, various parts of the world.
Yeah, I think the property right, honoring the individuals, property rights is one of the factors that make America. It's flourish economically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Lot of people in this world, where they live, they don't really have that right. Actually,
even if they have money, they can't guarantee that your assets could just be seized. And of course, that's disincentivizes investment, right? It's a huge advantage being here.
Yeah. Speaking of China, I know your wife was from China as well, right?
Yeah.
So my wife is American, so it's kind of we kind of have similar families. So how just real quick, how do you appreciate this in kind of like international or multicultural?
Yeah. I mean, there's some struggles, obviously, I think, around parenting ideas, but I think in the end, I think we agree on more things than we disagree, even though we have such vastly different. I think almost after it's been so long. I mean, we've been together 15 years now. 14 or 15 years. Yeah, thank you. It's like I think it would be a culture shock to be in a similar relationship with an American. I feel like I'm more, in a lot of ways, more connected to that culture in some ways. I mean, obviously more American than Chinese, certainly, but I feel very comfortable in China, and I feel very comfortable with and my kids speak both languages, which is wonderful, or at least my oldest does. My youngest is still learning to talk. But
you have 2 kids, right?
Yeah. And yourself, you have 3 kids?
I have 4 now.
4 kids, okay.
Yeah.
Do they speak both languages, or are they?
They unfortunately no. So my parents were here for 3 months. They learned a little more, but my wife and I speak English mainly at home. Okay. So yeah, I should put more effort on that. I think there's a lot of value in understanding different cultures. At least that's their dad's language, the culture.
Oh yeah, especially Chinese. I mean, it's becoming. We were traveling a little bit in Southeast Asia as well, and I mean, it's becoming more of an international language. And as China continues to grow, I mean, they have a lot of constraints as well around demographics and all those types of issues, and maybe governance, but still a massive country.
Yeah. It's a big language, and then almost $1.5 billion. I mean, people speaking it in the world, right? It's a beautiful language. There's a lot, great civilization and cultures, and contribute a lot to the world. So I think that would definitely be beneficial for my kids to learn this language
Yeah.
and learn about the civilization behind it and the history, stuff.
Do you think you'll go back? Do you think you'll take your kids back to China to stay for some period of time?
I definitely, I plan to go back, to visit more often. And I think if I take my kids to China to, embrace themselves into the culture and the language, with spending time with people there, I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a struggle to get there, especially when you got that many kids and
I know.
the flights and
Right.
the
That's
business
why
and
I'm
everything. I know it's a struggle. It's
thinking
time
maybe
difference.
take one or two at a time.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. So let's see. So the last part of this conversation. So I want to talk a little bit about the, entrepreneurship. I know you and your wife both have your own business, right? So have you guys worked in, I know your wife worked in, the bank, corporate America, typical, right? So have you worked in like typical corporate American job before?
Not really, to be honest. I used to, I was a teacher actually for years in all over the world. I taught English in different countries, and that's how I eventually met my wife in China. I was teaching English in China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I came back to the States, and like I said, I grew up in southeastern Ohio. So when we came back, that's where we went. And not a lot of opportunities there. I mean, it's kind of one of the most backward parts of the U.S.
Manufacturing's coming back to States, reshoring trained.
Yeah, it was kind of gutted. It was really gutted by the that exodus of manufacturing in the 90s. But anyway, I kind of was looking for any kind of job, really. I was trying to run the family farm, and that didn't work out. I ran a bunch of different businesses overseas that none of them had worked out. It's one of those things where you try and you fail and you learn, and you try and you fail and you learn. Especially kind of starting from nothing each time. But then the farming didn't really work out for a bunch of reasons. So I ended up getting a job climbing cell towers. And so that, which was great. I mean, it was a great opportunity to learn a lot of different things and travel all over the country, and kind of enabled us to come out here initially. And so once we got to Denver, there was obviously a lot more opportunities to do anything, especially for her initially. So that's kind of how we ended up here and started kind of on this path.
So you definitely enjoy being an entrepreneur, working your own business instead of working a 9-to-5 job, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was more like a 7 to 9 kind of job. In the summer, it'd be, you'd watch the sun go up from the tower and you'd watch it go back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that 12 hours might go faster than,
It does. Yeah.
Those 8 hours.
It was exhausting, and it was stressful, but it was very dangerous. I eventually actually got hurt. That's why I quit. I was kind of forced to. I loved the job. It was my dream job, climbing all day, every day. So I kind of stumbled into this, but I've always wanted to own my own business. I don't like having a boss, really, other than obviously all my clients are my boss. So that's kind of how it goes. I guess anytime you run a business, I feel like your clients end up being your boss. But, at least they're not telling you what to do with your time so much. They can always fire you.
Yeah. So what would you tell like a younger you, now looking back for your career so far, what would you tell a younger you, just career-wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't see...
Or life, or life.
Yeah, there wouldn't be much to say. Just keep going, take care of your body. I'd say that's number one thing, is take care of your health. I feel like that's number one. I certainly kind of pushed myself a little too hard, climbing towers, and ended up getting hurt, but you learn from everything you do. So I can't really say I have any regrets or anything I would change. Even every failure is just another learning experience, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future. Just keep going, don't quit.
I feel you. I agree.
Yeah.
So what's your goals or dreams for your career or your family?
Yeah. Well, I think hopefully the insurance market's going to improve in the next couple of years, and I'll be able to start my own agency and legitimately take most of my book. That's been the constraint. So, I mean, I have the lead flow to hire people to help me sell and help the business grow and just reach more people, provide better service to more people. But I'd have to hire to do that. So I can't do that in my current capacity. So also don't really have 100% ownership of my book. So hopefully in the next couple of years, be able to start my own agency and just grow from there, continue to expand it. The main constraint is just getting appointed with carriers that don't currently want to expand their book business all around it.
What's your dream for yourself and your wife and your kids? That's a family.
Well, I'd say, for the kids to grow up and be healthy and happy and, to have a good, stable family. I mean, I think that's number one. Where I grew up, there was a lot of trouble in families. There was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of divorce, a lot of social chaos. And I just hope that, we can teach the kids to do the right things and be good people and be strong and to make the right decisions as they grow up. And become good men when they grow up and continue the legacy of our family and our country.
That's super valuable. Yeah. And I know you're a great dad, so
I appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm happy for that. Yeah. Yeah, cool. It's super great to have you have this amazing conversation today.
Yeah. Thanks.
I know your wife is a former coworker and she's having her own business as well. I would like to interview her as well.
Yeah, I'll tell her. I'm sure she'll be happy to come on.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, most people find me on Reddit, which is kind of funny, but I'm Colorado insurance guy on Reddit. So if you search Colorado, and I also am if you search on Reddit, Colorado Insurance, if you have any questions, or Colorado Insurance, the group, that's my group. Feel free to ask questions in there.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, sure. If you have any, I'm there responding. I think that group is growing a little bit. I need to continually post in there. So feel free to post and ask questions. It's always good for.
Cool.
But also you can just reach out to me. My email is mloyd@trailstoneinsurance.com currently.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Reddit's probably
cool.
the best.
I'll put the link.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll put the link under this episode.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Cool. So your insurance is limited to Colorado or different states?
Colorado, Arizona, and Utah.
Okay.
And we have great offers in Arizona and Utah. We're trying to grow that market. I just build everything in Colorado, so it's kind of like that's another kind of constraint. I'm so busy with the current lead flow in Colorado that I haven't had any time to consider marketing in other states, really. But yeah, if anybody's in Arizona or Utah, we're happy to help, and we have great products.
Cool.
That's really.
Well, do reach out if you have some insurance need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you again so much for coming up.
Yeah, appreciate you, Justin. Talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good day, Morgan.